All right. Well, welcome to our fall kickoff of our mornings on the porch. We are going to start in about 5 minutes. So go ahead and grab your cup of coffee, settle in, and we will be back at 10. All right. Well, we are going to get started today. Before we jump into our topic, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Savannah. I am the administrative director for Yosemite Sierra Summer Camp, and I'm just going to give a few housekeeping rules. So, this session is recorded. We do log all of our videos on our website, but you will also receive an email with the link. So, just look out for that so you can share with a friend or you can watch some of the conversations we have today. So, Before we jump into it, let me just introduce our two speakers who will be talking about our topic. So we have Sarah Coolius, owner and executive director of YSSC, as well as Jessica, associate director of Yosemite Sierra Summer Camp. So I'm going to hand it off to them and we'll get this started.
Great. Thanks, Savannah. Good morning,
everybody.
Yes, it's good to be back.
It is good to be back. We kind of took off for the summer to run camp, but it is delightful to get back in our rhythm of monthly mornings on the porch and inviting you in to join us.
Yeah, so we haven't been doing virtual mornings on the porch. We have been literally here on the porch running camp, and can you hardly believe we wrapped up exactly 1 month ago yesterday.
That's just wild.
I
Wrapping up, it was such a great summer at camp. The staff was so strong. It felt like a normal summer without COVID protocols. It was wonderful. And man, did the kids show up so ready to be all in. We shout, "I'm all in" the first night from Star Rock, and it echoes off the mountain in front of us, and they were all in. Do you have any favorite memories that pop in your head?
Man, well, I was thinking, I love the first night and I love the last night. I think I probably have a couple of favorite memories. One of them, I just have to shout us out, was the first day of session 1 that launched our 50th summer. That was such a special day of celebration, and we got to surprise Sarah and Steve and throw a little bit of a celebration as we got started. It is so fun to celebrate milestones, and we do that at camp with campers all the time. So it was fun to celebrate the 50th and start us off.
I did cry a little bit that morning. It was so meaningful.
It was definitely, it was a tender morning for sure. Yeah, I think one of my other favorite memories, I would say, so we have these girls' days and boys' day, and if you are new to camp, you will come to discover more of what that is. But if you have kids that have been coming to camp, you've probably heard of girls' day and boys' day. And so boys' day, we're often at camp, but we cannot.
We hide out.
In boys'
it's
day.
For the boys.
It's just boys. But we get to hear through the trees in the air just echoes of different adventures and wholesome shenanigans, and just it's a blast. So I love getting to hear the sounds of Boys' Day. That's always a highlight.
That's really fun. I feel so fortunate that even at my mature age, that I get to dance like nobody's looking. At night on the meadow with all of the campers under the stars. We light up the meadow and we just get crazy. And just the wholesome, fun silliness of all that is so dear to me. And then I also, just the other day, I was making dinner and I was reminded of this camper that ran up. And again, we have camp nicknames. This is Sprinkles and I'm Salsa. And a camper ran up to me during the session and said, "Salsa, I tried another new food." And she was so thrilled, proud of herself for doing something kind of new and courageous for such a little one. And so as I'm making dinner, I thought, how good that we have a safe space where, we can climb up to the top of the climbing tower and ring a bell, but we can also try new food. That was really a fun memory.
Yeah, that was kind of the theme this summer. We had a lot of campers trying new foods this summer, which was a blast. They can be so proud of themselves for getting a bullseye at archery and also trying lasagna for the first time. It's
Bring
awesome.
it. Bring it.
It's all under the umbrella of camp. Yeah.
It is.
One of my other favorite memories, now that we're kind of talking about them naming their accomplishments, is getting to read our end of session survey, where campers get to kind of reflect on their time. They also do this on Star Rock, one of our quintessential places. at camp on the last night. But I also, once they've left, I get to read through, survey responses and get to hear them kind of articulate some of the things that they experienced at camp and their favorite things and what they would, do differently if they did camp all over again. And so I love getting to read them because kids really do say the darndest things. Some of them are so profound.
They're so honest.
Are so silly. It's awesome. So I love getting to read their responses. I pulled two just to read for everybody. One was from a Wolverine, which means that's an elementary age boy. And he said, when asked, how would you kind of describe your experience at camp to a friend? He said, this is one of the best camps ever. Oh my gosh, go. I just love, he paused mid-sentence, almost in like overwhelm as he's writing it. Oh my gosh, go. I was like,
oh, that's very charming.
I love that. I love that. I can totally imagine a 10-year-old boy writing that. And then another one that was great was from a Minaret, who's a high school age gal. And she said, I would say to definitely come because it's the best 2 weeks of your life.
Oh my dear.
Isn't that really sweet?
It's very sweet.
Yeah. So loved getting to read those, and it's just never lost on us what a big experience going away for 2 weeks is. So thank you, parents, if you had kids that came this last summer. Thank you for entrusting us with your kiddos and getting to allow us to spend the summer with them and grow with them and shape them and invest in them. It was a great summer.
It was a great summer. It sure was.
Well, we have a topic for this morning.
Yes,
and it's not just sharing our memories.
Although we could go on and on.
We could.
So what is our topic for the morning?
We are talking about this morning taking camp home with us. And just as a reminder, before we jump into this morning's topic, Mornings on the Porch created this last winter as a space to dialogue with parents about, all things camp, whether it's questions that you guys have or things that we've been noticing in campers that, we would love to, share with you guys. So lots of different things that we cover this morning. We're going to be talking about taking camp home. How do you capitalize on that growth that you just experienced in the summertime and really bring it into the fall? But we'll be doing these each month. So this month we're doing taking camp home with us. Next month we'll have awesome topics. It's usually about the last Wednesday of every month at 10 a.m. And you get yours truly. So Sarah, why don't you take us into taking camp home with us?
Sure, I'd be so happy to. So heading off to camp for 2 weeks, as Jessica said, is a big old deal. And we also know it's a big investment for parents too. And so helping embed the experience of camp, the glow of camp, the growth of camp into the rest of the year for campers is something we're really passionate about. Because they've put their whole heart into it. You all have put your heart into it. So how can we keep the growth going? How can we help them, our campers, as they head home, continue to be that really wholesome and positive influence in the family, in the classroom, on the team, in their community? And now we know some of you folks who are watching this morning, your campers went all the way back in session 1. So that was in June. It's been a minute, but it's never too late to reflect back and say, what might we embed in our family culture? What traditions or rituals or activities or foods might we want to bring into how we live our lives as a family that could kind of keep those muscles of the character growth, the friendship growth, the faith growth, and skill growth going. So we are going to invite you, as it crosses your mind, any traditions you have brought home or your campers have brought home from camp. If you would just pop that in the chat, we'd love to share those. In addition, we have a lot of recommendations ourselves, many of which when my 3 kids were at camp we brought it home into our year-round lives. And I've heard from other friends that they've done the same. But before we do that, we do have special guests.
We do have a special guest. So I'm excited to welcome our a camper parent, actually two campers, Andrea Shea. She's going to be joining us. So I think Popcorn's going to help us. Savannah's going to help us get her on with us. So as we, wait for her to be magically transported into our Zoom, we're excited to have her. She has two wonderful kids, Suzanne and Callum. They've been coming for a couple of years, and they have camp deep in their blood. Good morning, Andrea. Oh, great. I think we need your volume. Let's see. Maybe unmute.
Good morning.
Perfect.
Good morning. Hi, Andrea.
Oh, it's good to see you.
Great to see you.
Thanks for joining us and being willing to answer some questions that we have for you and share with some of our other parents about what it's looked like for you to take camp home and have your campers really embed this into the life of your family. So I have a couple questions for you, but before we do that, why don't you just share a little bit, tell us the, grades of your campers and share a little bit about, camp runs in your blood. You've got some history with camps. So share a little bit about that before we dive into some of the questions.
Okay, so I have a sixth grader named Suzanne, and I have a fourth grader named Callum, and this was their second year at YSSC. I grew up on the East Coast, and I went to a little Christian camp on the Chesapeake Bay that is still near and dear to my heart, as well as that of my brothers. Every time I see them, stories come up. My cousins even went for a session. And so the stories, the traditions, like we'll still run into counselors we've seen. And the connections are so strong and so full of love. And I just feel like it's been a really good growth spot for all of us. And for me, it was a big stepping out point. It gave me, it was so much fun. The best things my parents ever did for me in the summer. And it was also the first step I took to my own independence, which gave me the courage to, travel all over the world and do all kinds of jobs that were best for me personally, but kind of took me on a different path from maybe my community. And that's a hard thing to do, but it also helped me find my truest self. And so I've seen that same thing happen with my own kiddos. So as soon as they, came back and started the school year, Suzanne was off to middle school, and rather than being fearful, she was excited. She knew that she was going to get to meet those teachers on her own, stand on her own 2 feet. And it wasn't about, the parents anymore, which kind of, the parents have a big role in elementary. And she loves that, and she's thriving. And also on that same note, a lot of her friends are doing the same kind of activities. And in a way, as a parent, I know those kids well, I know their parents. And so I'm like, oh, don't you want to do that too? But she doesn't want to do all the same things. Some things are the same, but she's also more aware of who she is personally. And I do attribute that to camp, where she tries so many different new activities and really has the time to just process what she's done and what she loved, and maybe the things that she doesn't love as much. And so she's very aware of that. So at 11 years old, she's jumping right into gymnastics, which is so hard at 11. All the kids, who have grown up doing it are so good, but she's not discouraged. And the same thing happened with my son, Callum. He came back and he just, he's like, I know the boys are playing football, and, football's great. I love playing on the beach, but I think I'd really like to do sailing. So he's jumped in and he's joined sailing, and he'll go sailing, for 4 hours at a time with this new crew of kids. He knows nobody. He's one of the youngest. He's definitely one of the worst because he doesn't have much experience doing it, and none of that discourages him at all. So I think that confidence and that independence of like, I'm going to make my life experience my own, definitely comes from going to camp and discovering themselves as individuals.
It's so sweet to hear.
So proud of your kids.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then that's also the power of your kids, like diving all into camp and really, we always encourage our kiddos that dabble effect of getting to try new activities that they might be awesome at and they might not be great at. They might be trying for the first time, and that they can actually build that confidence of jumping into something for the first time and take that back to sailing or, a return to gymnastics and whatnot. So you are already really touching on some of those, the field transferable skills that we hope, our campers take home with them, and know that it does, but they can't always articulate that that's what's happening in them. And so encouraging at every age, but especially entering into middle school and when kids are really asking those questions of who am I? And so, for Suzanne to be, so confident in jumping in, just, obviously warms our heart so much. So you've been coming, or your kids have been coming to camp for just a couple years, but you have seen the power of camp through your whole life. I'm curious, share with us, some of the ways that your kids have taken camp home. So you've talked about, that confidence and honestly, courage to jump in and try new things and make new friends. What are some of the traditions or tangible ways that your kiddos continue to integrate little parts of YSC at home?
Well, one of my favorite things, especially after their first year going together, they came home and it's like they weren't ready for it to be over. So they would sing each other to sleep with the goodnight song, which is really, really sweet to hear as a parent. And it's like a little fairy tale, right? Those moments you just want a video. And so now I'll even find Callum just the other night was singing our dog to sleep, in the same way. And so we also have really good table discussions, where we sit and that's a time for us to refocus and regroup, and a lot comes out in those moments. And I think that's part of the dining format that they have at camp, where they're sitting and it's family style and they're having a discussion and they're taking turns, and we all value it, and they do too. They're not, I'm not sure I would have said I valued that when I was a kid their age, but I think that they would. And they also try new foods. I had a group of kiddos over for snack, and I loved having them so much, but I was surprised, and this was after one of my kids' activities, I was surprised at how much lack of, I don't know, adventure there was in the kids. They were like, ugh. They were just, I think it might even be on trend now to say, oh, that's gross. And my kids love the experience of new foods at camp. And whenever they go to someone else's house, they're very excited to try the new foods. And so I feel like that's something I really appreciate as a parent, because I feel like it's something that's, it's a gracious thing, being a good guest. You go to someone's house, you try the new food, when you immediately say, oh, that's gross, oh, that's different, oh, that smells, it's kind of off-putting. And then people aren't excited to host you, but it's also just makes you a more worldly and open person. There are different flavors, all around the world, and you really limit yourself. And I think camp gives them that, because they're constantly trying new foods and they're excited about it. And so I loved that. And then along with the foods, my kids also learn to make things. Like, they love to make guacamole. If they see avocados, they call dibs on it, and they are battling to see who gets to make the guacamole that night. And better yet, if we don't have all the ingredients, they're not discouraged. They're like, that's fine, we'll just do it with this, which is another thing. The flexibility in thinking, I think, is so important for this generation. And they definitely have that, and not being so rigid. Oh, I have to have everything a certain way. And that's life, right? We have to be flexible and go with it. And I think camp is like that. You're outdoors. There are a lot of different things that happen, and you have to think on the fly and be flexible. And so they've definitely brought that home. I think another thing, and I guess this is less tangible maybe, but it's more of an abstract concept. But I was struck the other day when Callum came home from school, and he said, Mom, I think this, I'm really sad for this friend. This friend, made a bad choice and had a consequence. And rather than being judgmental about his friend and the bad choice, he started to imagine what his day was like. Because when you're at camp, you spend the whole day and night with kids. So you get that, so-and-so couldn't find their swim trunks this morning. And that was really frustrating. And, and they might feel a little stressed, and they might run a little late, and how that can impact the next few things. And so I really loved that Callum thought about this friend in a bigger picture, and rather than just, well, he shouldn't have done that. I mean, sure, maybe we shouldn't make bad choices, but we also can appreciate that other people are having experiences like we are. So I think it really takes you away from yourself, and our kids are in a very selfish stage, but to get there helps them to be a better friend, better person. And sorry, this is like emotional for me. But I really loved that he shared that and he went that far into what his friend's day experience was.
Wow. Wow.
Developing empathy is such a key, life skill. And even at the corporate level now, as people are looking to, onboard new employees, they will ask about empathy because it's, we're realizing it so impacts how we interact with our coworkers, how we interact with the customer, and just to hear that that's continuing to bubble up in Callum is really gratifying. I'm so pleased to hear that. And I love that you saw that in him. And confirmed that. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Oh man. We're crazy about your kids. They're pretty it's so sweet to hear some of the ways that they, have brought camp home, and, whether it's the goodnight song or even intangible ways like, developing empathy or courage or, friend skills. That is really sweet to hear about. Kind of touched on this already. I guess my last question, thank you for joining us. My last question would be really to kind of wrap up, summarize, like, if you could kind of, summarize in just a couple of sentences, like what has been the value of your kids integrating their experience from summer camp into their, day-to-day life at school and in the fall and home? What's been the value to, your family and your kids really, having them take camp home with them?
I think the core value of it is they are finding that they are the leaders of their own lives and they are being their truest selves, and they're making decisions about where they want to go as people. And I think that's so important because that's our ultimate goal. And we can get caught up in the day-to-day and the little, the activities we're doing now, but what's your long-term plan? And my husband has this line he always uses: are your choices of today in alignment with your goals for tomorrow? And so we talk about that, whether it's with friendships, whether it's with food choices, activities. And so I think that is the value of camp. When you finally go away, you get to hear you get to hear that voice in your head being yourself, because there's so many distractions and so many friends that we've known forever and our parents and our siblings. When we go away to camp, we hear ourselves sometimes for the very first time. And so I think in summary, that's what my kids have. They have that in touchedness with themselves so that they can live happy lives.
Wow.
You are a wise mom.
Yes.
I really appreciate your words around that. And
You should be getting out the door this morning, but we do it.
well, it's all messy, right? Parenting's so messy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your real life experience, and we're gonna move you back into the participant role here and share just a few more suggestions that we've come across, heard of, have considered ourselves in ways to bring camp home. But please know we deeply appreciate your participation, Andrea.
Absolutely.
So delightful. Well,
she touched on so many great ones.
I know she did. She went through our list for us. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think that one of the keys is really as we, bring up with our campers or with our kids, their camp experience, even if it's been a few weeks, really asking them, what's a favorite thing about camp? And how do we make that happen here? And it might not look exactly the same, but it can look pretty much the same. I know one of the ways that helps, that always helped my kids, kind of revisit their camp memories was sitting down with them and going through those camp photos on Campminder on our parent account. They stay on there way after camp is gone. And if you ever have an extra half hour, or you can kind of plan it throughout the week, just to sit down and look through the photos if you haven't done that already, and say, what was happening here? Or why was that costumed character looking like that? Or wow, to see your cabin down at Marksmanship looks, tell me more about it, and so I think, kind of rolling through those photos and reigniting and those memories, and even asking, as you're doing that, what did you learn through that? What did you learn about yourself? Oh, it looks like there was a guest speaker. Do you remember what he or she shared? That's kind of a fun way to reignite, and maybe say, okay, how do we make that happen here?
Yes. Yeah, it really jogs the memory, especially for some of those campers who came back in June. It's reminding them, oh my gosh, yes, I did make it to the top of the rock wall, and how amazing that was. I love that Andrea talked about meal times, because meal times are a hallmark of our program, which, many people would not say that, but we take a lot of intention into our meal times, with even just the shape of the table that we sit at, round table, so you can dialogue across the table. What is it called? Passing
family
style.
Got it.
Family style. When you pass, and you have to keep asking, can you please pass me the tomatoes? Can you pass me the lasagna?
And that there's a portion for everybody.
Yes, exactly. There's so many great things embedded into mealtime itself. And so, maybe that's something that you guys integrate into your family. That's one of the ways of taking camp home. And, sometimes there's, gymnastics and all the different competing evening, activities. And so maybe it's just 1 or 2 nights a week that you do, family style dinner, and have those conversations around the table. Sometimes, parents will ask us, well, what did they talk about around the table at camp? It's kind of a long time sometimes, so if you want to borrow one of our questions, sometimes we often do this at the end of the day. We'll talk about high, lows, woes, and bros. And so that's kind of a fun rhyming way to evaluate the day and share a little bit about your experience from the day. And so the high of the day, the low of the day, the woe of the day is like something that maybe surprised them, or was, surprising or shocking or out of the ordinary. Then kind of take creative liberty with that one. And then a bro, it's a shout out, someone that really stood out to them, whether it's a sibling, how sweet it would be for them to shout out a sibling or a parent, or even just a friend at school that really, meant something to them. So high, low, woe, bro is one of our questions that we use, and they'll probably remember that from camp. One of the other things that I loved hearing about, this was a couple years ago, but we heard that one of our campers, longtime campers who've been coming to YSSC for many years, actually integrated our Flower Sunday tradition into her high school graduation ceremony. And so she had been selected to be the speaker, and she actually led her high school graduating class in a Flower Sunday exercise where, simply at camp, we have flowers and we exchange an affirmation with a flower. And so we have our campers come and find a friend or a cabmate or a staff member, and they give a flower and they speak an affirmation, something that they appreciate about them or see in them. And so she took that home and brought that actually into, a graduation ceremony. But you can do that as a family, even like once a month or something, and have that exercise of affirming one another, receiving affirmation. That should definitely spark a memory from camp in them.
Yeah. Oh, I so appreciated hearing that this camper made that happen, and that the school was game for jumping in on that. And, at camp, we really build in formal and informal affirmation times, whether it's Flower Sunday, Oak Leaf Tuesday, affirmation circles, to really get in the habit telling those you appreciate why, what it was that they did that was supportive to you. So that could be a really, really fun thing. Sometimes it starts awkwardly. Some of these traditions will start off a little uncomfortable, but then it rolls into comfort. And I think it means a lot. I think it means a lot. That's so fun. For those of you whose kiddos were at camp this summer and went to crafts, many of our campers made little lanterns out of little glass jars, and they painted them, and we gave them a little battery operated candle to stick in there. And if they haven't been using it, what a sweet nightlight, or what a fun thing to put at the centerpiece of the dinner table or in the window in the evening if you've got friends or grandma coming over. So I think, putting to use the things that the campers made. Some campers painted tote bags. My daughter started taking her tote bag to school, to class, which was so fun. And the kids would say, "Did you make that? Where was that from?" And she got to tell them about camp. So really putting to use the things that the kids made, and kind of to harken back to what Andrea was talking about, our campers have outdoor cooking, and they make tortillas and quesadillas, and having them jump in and help make those meals is really, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many good ones, and we could go on and on. Maybe we'll just do a couple more.
Sure.
One that comes to mind, if your family goes to church, one of the things that we ask our campers when we have evening sessions with our speaker is for them to bring their Bible and to try looking up the verses, and maybe even underline if that's what they want to use their Bible for. And so, if your family goes to church, encouraging your kids to bring their Bible with them and try finding, the book and the passage, and really kind of making that their own. That should be a muscle that they started developing at camp. And so getting to have them integrate that into their, weekly or monthly, whatever schedule, and going to church. That could be another really sweet way. Any last one you want to share?
It might be a challenge for a family, but because it's such an unique and impactful experience for our campers, is to ask your kids what it was like to be tech free, to not have a phone with them or a laptop or pad with them for 2 weeks. And, what the hard and the good things were about that. And maybe for a Saturday, have the family go tech free, read a real book, or go on a hike together, or be really present just with those that you're with, and practice the joys and the challenges of being tech free. Our campers all the time will, by the end of the session, will comment how healthy that was for them. They may not use that word. They might say less stressful. I was less anxious. It was nice not to have to worry where I left my phone. I really got to focus on what I was doing. So anyway, I appreciate when families do that, tech-free Sunday or tech-free evenings, so that they can be more present.
And that one, I'll say the kids always articulate that themselves at the end of the session. You might need to help them arrive at that as a value at the beginning, because we do just get so, and they say this, it's so easy to just get so caught up in using that all the time. And so that one would be a really worthwhile exercise. You might need to help them a little bit decide that that's a good idea. But I bet by the end, and as rhythms go, they will, just like at camp, they will come to really appreciate that as well. So don't be discouraged if there's a little pushback at first.
And it might be challenged because, we parents have to put our phones down too. And so sometimes the game, at least with my kids, have been, okay, Mom, you too. Put down the phone. Ooh, I know you just heard that little ding. That means there's a text there and you have to wait as well. So we kind of have fun with that.
They want to call you out too.
Yes, it's true.
Good. Well,
I think maybe that You want to mention
Yes.
one super awesome
Yes.
final way of bringing
Yes.
camp home is,
Yes.
is staying in touch.
Yes,
Stay
stay in touch.
connected.
There's so many different ways to stay connected and in touch. You know, your campers should have received a memory book at the end of this session. So they should have that. And there's a roster of names and addresses of staff members and cabin mates or friends that they made outside of the cabin to stay in touch with. We also have a fall reunion where we come together with staff members drive and fly out to be there. Campers come from all over and join us in Southern California for an afternoon of reconnecting and reminiscing. So this year's is November 5th. It's a Sunday. It is time change Sunday. So we somehow always fall on that day. So we'll remind you, but
Don't be
November
an hour late.
yeah, November 5th is our fall reunion this year, and it is going to be a blast. I already have counselors and staff members texting about flying out and making it. So it's going to be fun. So we hope that you join us there too.
And that's in Newport Beach.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So thank you for joining us. We are going to pop back to Savannah, who has a couple of last wrap up notes for you guys to keep in mind. But we are so grateful for your time and attention this morning, and hope that as you integrate camp back into your day-to-day this fall, that is a meaningful and enriching experience.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Well, I just want to say one last thing before we end our session. So keep on your calendar October 25th for our next Mornings on the Porch. And right now we also have our early bird rate going up until January 31st. So you can get a discount on next summer's tuition. So go ahead and share that with a friend or apply for summer 2024 if you have not done that already. All right. Thank you again, and we'll see you next month.
Bye.